The world thought it knew Malcolm-Jamal-Warner, the cherished Theo Huxtable, the man who made us laugh, cry, and believe in the magic of family. But what if every heartwarming memory was built on a lie? What if his death wasn't fate at all? What if this icon's tragic end was a calculated Hollywood hit no one saw coming? Brace yourself. In a gut punch interview, Phylicia Rashad, the woman who stood beside Malcolm for years, drops a bombshell that shatters the illusion. She reveals Malcolm didn't just pass away, he was silenced by the very people who once called him family. First name on the list, Bill Cosby, Malcolm's so-called mentor, his on-screen dad, the man holding his career in a chokehold. But Cosby wanted more. He wanted absolute control. And when Malcolm pushed back, the darkness struck. Then comes the second name, Tempestt Bledsoe, once a trusted friend, now accused of scheming from the inside. Rashad says Malcolm warned her. Again and again, Tempestt was part of the plan to destroy him. The betrayal? It cuts deeper than words. And it's not over. A chilling 1997 audio tape of Malcolm outing the plot leaks to the public. Before anyone can breathe, Malcolm is dead in what they call an accident. But in Hollywood, is anything ever truly an accident? This is the moment the facade cracks wide open. The truth is out, but is it enough? Not until the third name drops. The one that will rattle Hollywood's foundations and rewrite its history. This isn't just a scandal, it's a war for justice. And the war is far from over. The day the news hit about Malcolm-Jamal-Warner's sudden death, the world froze. A beloved star, a household name, ripped away too soon. But what if every tear, every headline, was built on a lie? What if this wasn't some tragic fluke, but a cold-blooded hit decades in the making? And what if the man who was supposed to protect Malcolm, the one the world saw as his father figure, was actually the puppet master of his downfall? That man, Bill Cosby. Yes, you heard right. Bill Cosby, the man America trusted, the smiling face we grew up with, is tangled deep in the dark web that trapped Malcolm. In a jaw-dropping confession, Phylicia Rashad, once one of Cosby's closest friends, steps forward to detonate the truth. Her voice shakes, her words slice through Hollywood like glass. Malcolm's death was no accident. Her revelation sends shockwaves through the industry. It was a conspiracy, and Cosby's hands weren't clean. For years, he'd posed as Malcolm's mentor, his guiding light. But behind Hollywood's golden curtains, the truth was darker than anyone dared imagine. And Phylicia's bombshell was only the opening act. She revealed Malcolm had been living in fear for months before he died. He told me, she said, voice cracking, Bill and Tempestt are working together to take me down. That name, Tempestt Bledsoe, was enough to chill her to the bone. The woman who once stood as Malcolm's close friend, his trusted co-star, was now allegedly tangled in a plot to wipe him out. But why? What could push someone who once called him family to stab him in the back so viciously? Phylicia didn't have the answer, but she knew one thing for certain. It was all part of a calculated mission to shut him up before he could spill the truth. And this wasn't just idle gossip. Malcolm had been building something massive. Something that, if unleashed, could obliterate the careers of Hollywood's most untouchable power players. The ones who had stacked their empires on lies, manipulation, and exploitation. That's when the story turns pitch black. A 1997 audio tape thought lost forever suddenly surfaces. On it, Malcolm's own voice scorches the air as he accuses Tempestt of sabotaging him. He lays it out how she'd been scheming in the shadows, teaming up with Cosby to wreck his career, torch his reputation, and erase him for good. They think they can just erase me, Malcolm warns, his voice pulsing with rage and dread. But I won't go down quietly. The truth will come out. Chilling words, especially knowing that just months later, Malcolm would turn up dead, under circumstances too strange to ignore, accident, or a perfectly staged cover-up. The tape ripped through the world like a lightning strike, and the media went into full meltdown. Fans flooded social media, demanding justice, and the hashtag justice for Malcolm roared across timelines worldwide. People who'd loved him for decades began questioning everything they'd been fed, and they weren't buying the accident story. They saw it for what it looked like, a conspiracy, crafted by the people closest to him. But the bombshells kept coming. Despite her grief, Phylicia refused to shut up. In her second interview, she dropped another shocker. There was a third person involved. I can't name them, she whispered, voice barely hanging on. But they're still out there, walking. Free the one who really pulled the strings. The media exploded. Who could it be? A Hollywood insider? A studio boss? A politician? Speculation spread like wildfire as authorities finally began to dig deeper into the conspiracy. Then came the headline that shook the industry. Tempestt Bledsoe was arrested, charged with conspiracy to murder Malcolm. Outside the courthouse, streets overflowed with supporters holding signs, "Justice for Malcolm. We won't forget." And yet, the whispers didn't stop. The real truth still hung in the shadows. Was Bill Cosby the mastermind? Was Tempestt just a willing pawn? Or was there someone even more powerful pulling every string from behind the scenes? As the investigation pushed forward, Phylicia's resolve hardened, naming that third person would complete the puzzle. But she also knew doing it could cost her everything. "I will not rest until the truth comes out," Phylicia vowed in her third interview, her voice sharp with conviction. "Malcolm deserves justice, and I'll make sure the world knows the truth, no matter what it costs me." The investigation was still wide open, but one thing was crystal clear. Hollywood's dirtiest secrets were being dragged into the light, one by one. And the truth about Malcolm's death was now closer than it had ever been. This wasn't just a fight for justice, it was a battle for Malcolm's legacy. A legacy poisoned by lies, betrayal, and a conspiracy buried for far too long. But the truth had teeth, and when the third name finally dropped, Hollywood itself could collapse under the weight of it. The world was watching, breath held, hungry for the answers that would finally deliver justice to the man silenced far too soon. And this was only the beginning. The truth was out there, and it was only a matter of time before the whole house of cards came crashing down. The first arrest had already shaken the ground. Tempestt Bledsoe, once America's sweetheart as Rudy on The Cosby Show, now stood dead center in a scandal so massive it threatened to blow Hollywood to pieces. But even with her in cuffs, the questions kept piling up. The truth behind Malcolm Jamal Warner's death was still lurking in the shadows, waiting to be fully exposed. Phylicia Rashad, already the epicenter of a media firestorm, was ready to smash through the last wall of silence, fully aware it could cost her everything. In her third live interview, her voice quivered under the weight of what she was about to unleash. The first two names, Bill Cosby and Tempestt Bledsoe, were already out in the open. But there was still one more. Tempestt isn't the mastermind, Phylicia revealed, each word heavy enough to cut glass. She's just a pawn in a much bigger game. The real power behind all of this? It's someone you'd never expect. The camera closed in as the audience held their breath. She wiped away a tear, eyes burning with both grief and resolve. The third person, she continued, is someone who had everything to lose if Malcolm exposed the truth. Someone whose empire would crumble if his legacy came to light. Every ear in Hollywood leaned in, waiting for the name. Phylicia inhaled slowly, her voice shaking. It's a name you've seen in headlines for years. Someone hiding in plain sight. One of Hollywood's elite. The media detonated. Whispers morphed into full-on chaos. Was it a beloved actor? A high-powered producer? A studio titan? The speculation was wildfire. Then hours later, a bombshell leak hit the press. Security camera footage from the night Malcolm died, footage no one believed existed, surfaced. The grainy clip showed Malcolm slipping into a studio late at night, the heavy door closing behind him. And then, a shadowed figure followed. That figure? The third player in this deadly conspiracy. The camera tightened on the shadowy figure, but the image stayed maddeningly vague. No face, no clear ID. The world was starving to know who it was. Then came the detonation. An anonymous source dropped the ultimate bombshell. A Hollywood insider claimed the third conspirator was none other than a powerful studio mogul, the one with the most to lose if Malcolm's secrets ever saw daylight. The name sent shockwaves tearing through the industry. This was someone whose public image had been polished to perfection, someone who didn't just control careers, he controlled destinies. A single word from him could erase Malcolm entirely. Hollywood plunged into chaos. Fans, influencers, and gossip blogs exploded with theories. Hashtag Hollywood conspiracy blazed across the internet. The truth, buried for decades, was clawing its way up, but the deeper people dug, the more dangerous it became. Meanwhile, Tempestt Bledsoe sat in custody. Her legal team clammed up, stoking even wilder speculation. Why would she betray Malcolm? What promises were whispered to her? Did she really believe she could outmaneuver everyone? Her arrest wasn't just a scandal, it was a knife to the heart of a public that once adored her. And just when the frenzy hit its peak, the world got hit with an even bigger twist. Another leak this time. a damning document straight from a Hollywood insider. It laid out a secret meeting between Bill Cosby, Tempestt Bledsoe, and the mysterious third player. The agenda? Not just killing Malcolm's career, killing Malcolm himself. The transcript, obtained by an anonymous source, was blunt. He's the last one who can expose us. If we don't act now, we lose everything. Chilling enough on its own until you hear what came next, which was far worse, a voice recording. From that very meeting surfaced Bill Cosby's voice, unmistakable and dripping with menace. Do whatever it takes. Make sure he never speaks again. The world staggered under the weight of it. This wasn't a fluke. This wasn't a tragic twist of fate. This was a cold-blooded, premeditated murder engineered by the people Malcolm trusted most. Reality crashed over the public like a tidal wave. The once beloved stars of The Cosby Show weren't just TV characters anymore. They were now central figures in a real-life saga of betrayal, greed, and calculated killing. But Phylicia Rashad wasn't finished. As if the world wasn't already. Gasping, she delivered another hit. I've stayed quiet for too long, she confessed, her voice trembling. But now, the truth has to come out. And the truth is, they won't stop until everyone who knows it is destroyed. Bill, Tempestt, and the unnamed third figure. They'd go to any lengths to keep this buried. Tears welled in her eyes, but her voice was steady. I'm not afraid. Malcolm deserves justice. His family deserves justice. And if I have to go down telling the truth, so be it. The room froze. The world held its breath. The truth was darker than anyone had dared to imagine. Bill Cosby wasn't just involved, he was the architect. Tempestt Bledsoe wasn't just a pawn, she was a willing player. And the third person? The shadowy puppet master with the most to lose. This wasn't a gossip story anymore. This was a war for justice, one that threatened to rip the glossy mask off Hollywood and expose its rotten core. And Phylicia knew. The stakes had never been higher, but she was in, all the way. And just when it felt like the truth was finally within reach, the plot twisted again. Out of the shadows stepped a mysterious figure, someone who claimed to hold even more evidence, more explosive secrets than anyone could imagine. Whispers spread like wildfire. Could this be the missing key to blowing the conspiracy wide open? The world held its breath. Malcolm's death was no longer just about him, it was about the world he'd fought to protect. About the Hollywood machine built on decades of lies that was now teetering on the edge of collapse. The investigation pressed on, but the truth had grown into something far bigger than the industry had ever faced. Phylicia Rashad, staring danger in the eye, refused to back down. She was going to get justice for Malcolm, and the world was glued to every development, waiting for the last piece of the puzzle to click into place. But could the truth really break through? Or would the puppet masters behind this conspiracy bury it forever? Hollywood trembled. The world waited. The story was nowhere near its end. But one fact was undeniable: when the truth finally exploded into the open, it would change everything. The lies, once layered deep under power and deceit, were being ripped into the light. And Malcolm Jamal Warner's death was no longer just a tragic headline in Hollywood's history. It had become the spark that might burn the whole empire down. It was more than a scandal, it was a conspiracy, a betrayal at the highest level, poised to blow apart the very foundation Hollywood had built its glittering empire on. But one question still burned. Who was the true mastermind? Who had orchestrated this deadly chess game? And why was Malcolm the one marked for silence? As the world sat on edge, waiting for the last piece to drop, the investigation swerved into darker territory. Phylicia Rashad, who had watched Malcolm grow from a young star to a man, held the final key. She knew this wasn't about petty revenge, it was about justice. Justice not just for Malcolm, but for every soul chewed up and spat out by the Hollywood machine. The identity of the third person, the most powerful figure hiding in plain sight, had the globe hooked. Fans and reporters obsessed over the puzzle. Was it a mega producer, a high-profile director, or someone even more deeply entrenched in the shadows? Then, just when it seemed no more shock could hit, Phylicia did the unthinkable. Sitting before the camera, her face lined with exhaustion and resolve, she spoke the words that froze the room. Her voice shook, but her conviction did not. The third person behind Malcolm's death is none other than Cliff Thomas. The name landed like a bomb, detonating through Hollywood. The audience erupted in gasps, disbelief etched on every face. Clifford Thomas, Hollywood's untouchable power broker, was the mastermind behind the plot that ended Malcolm's life. But Phylicia wasn't finished. As the stunned silence deepened, she pressed on. Cliff was the one with the power to erase everything Malcolm had built. He controlled the careers of countless stars, including Malcolm. And when Malcolm began pulling at the threads of Hollywood's darkest secrets, Cliff decided it was time to strike. The world reeled. How had Clifford Thomas hidden in plain sight for so long? How had he twisted the people around him, including Bill Cosby and Tempestt Bledsoe, into obedient pawns in his lethal game? Phylicia's voice cracked as she recalled the fear that consumed Malcolm in his final days. He wasn't just worried about his career, she said, eyes shining with tears. He feared for his life. He knew that if he spoke out, there'd be no turning back. They'd silence him forever. And silence him they did. Now, the investigation shifted into overdrive, laser focused on uncovering the full scope of Clifford Thomas' grip over Hollywood's underbelly. Evidence poured in: secret recordings, encrypted files, and documents, detailing his arsenal of blackmail, bribery, cover-ups, and threats. But the most damning piece yet: a recording made just hours before Malcolm's death, a meeting between Clifford Thomas, Bill Cosby, and Tempestt Bledsoe. In the recording, Clifford's voice cut through like ice cold, calculated, and merciless. "We've waited too long. If he doesn't fall in line, we have no choice. He's a liability. Make sure it's done quietly. This wasn't an accident. This was murder, deliberate, premeditated, and executed with surgical precision." The world watched in shock as the nightmare unraveled. The people they'd trusted, the faces they'd admired, stood unmasked as villains in one of Hollywood's most staggering conspiracies. And just when it seemed the full picture was in view, the final twist dropped. A new video surfaced, grainy but gut-churning. It showed Clifford Thomas in a closed-door meeting with an unidentified figure, casually discussing Hollywood's future, their iron grip over its stars, and the extreme measures they'd take to keep that control. The real shiver came at the end, when Clifford leaned in and said, "We control the narrative. We control their lives. And no one will ever know the truth. Not while I'm in charge." The implications were horrifying. Hollywood's glitz had been built on a mountain of lies, with Clifford Thomas as the invisible hand pulling every string. But now, the truth was cracking through. Piece by piece, it was all coming to light. As the media swarmed with the latest revelations, Phylicia Rashad stood unshaken. "I will not rest until the truth is out." She declared it with unshakable conviction. Malcolm deserves justice, and the world deserves to know the truth. Yet, even as the investigation neared its conclusion, the questions kept piling up. Who else had been in on it? How many other stars had been chewed up and spit out by Clifford Thomas' empire? What other skeletons still rattled in Hollywood's locked closets? And perhaps most chilling of all, who was still out there, quietly pulling strings, controlling careers, and making sure the full truth never escaped? The fight for justice was only in its opening act. The takedown of Clifford Thomas, Bill Cosby, and Tempestt Bledsoe was seismic, but far from complete. Hollywood's deepest rot had been dragged into the light, but the battle for Malcolm's name was far from over. The truth had emerged, yes, but the price for it had been steep, almost unbearable. The empire of lies was cracking, splintering under the weight of exposure, and the entire world was locked in, watching it all come apart. The final secrets were still out there, waiting to detonate, secrets powerful enough to change Hollywood forever. The truth is out. The lies are shattered. The golden fad built by the Hollywood elite is collapsing before our eyes. But we're nowhere near finished, not by a long shot. Malcolm Jamal Warner's death wasn't just another tragic news story. It wasn't just another celebrity gone too soon. No, this was a calculated execution, a betrayal of the highest order. And the ones responsible? They think they can get away with it. They think they can erase us, bury the truth, and walk away clean. They're wrong. We will not let them win. Malcolm deserves justice. Phylicia Rashad deserves justice. And every single person chewed up, betrayed, and broken by Hollywood's shadowy power brokers deserves justice. This is bigger than one man's death. This is about dismantling a system built on lies, manipulation, and control. A system that's been untouchable for far too long, and it's time to bring it crashing down. But this battle is far from finished. We need your voice in the fight. Keep pressing for answers. Keep this story alive. Share it. Spread it. Make sure the world knows what really happened to Malcolm, and make sure they know it now. We cannot and will not let these powerful figures walk away from murder Malcolm may be gone, but his legacy still stands. His fight isn't over, and as long as we keep pushing, keep speaking, and keep shining a light into the darkest corners of this industry, we will get justice. We will rip the masks off the monsters hiding in the shadows. So here's what you can do. Share this video. Share the truth. Refuse to let them bury it. We won't stop until every missing piece is found and every guilty hand is held to account. This fight is bigger than one man, bigger than Hollywood. This is the fight for truth. This is the fight for justice. This is the fight for Malcolm Jamal Warner. And the truth will not be silenced. The world is watching. Don't let them get away with it. Justice is waiting.